Good evening. Come on in and have a seat. We're about to get started. We are ready to pass out index cards so you can write down your questions. People will come back to pick them up, and we will pose those questions to our candidates. My name is Dan Haley. I am publisher of the Forest Park Review. Welcome. We want to, on behalf of the Forest Park Chamber of Commerce, which is the sponsor of this event, along with the review, we want to welcome you. We want to thank our hosts at District 91 for opening the space to us as they do every election season. The format is somewhat informal. In a minute, we are going to go to question or to opening statements from each of the commissioner candidates. This is the only part of the evening that is going to be timed. Candidates have 1 minute to make an opening statement, then we will go to questions. The questions are not timed. It is intended to be more of a conversation. Every candidate does not have to answer every question. If you have questions you would like us to direct to a specific candidate, we can do that. But otherwise, I think we are ready to go. We're going to go with the commissioner candidates until about 7:45. We will take a very short break and then come back with the two candidates for mayor. And we'll go from about 7:50 till just before 9 o'clock. And with that, we are ready to begin, and we are going in order from right to left.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Boroff. This is my second time speaking first. So thank you for making it familiar in what is a new setting to me. Anyway, I am part of Forest Park Forward. We are a slate, John, Julianne, Jessica, and myself. We are a slate of new voices and fresh ideas. And over the past few months, I've been going door to door, meeting neighbors like yourself, exploring those fresh ideas, and meeting new faces. What I hope I can, a lot of the questions people have for me maybe are being answered in my bio that you can see in front of you. So some of the things I like to do, the same things I used to do when I came here as a kid. Go to Parky's, Brown's Chicken is not so much anymore, but there's plenty of restaurants. Anyway, look forward to exploring the opportunities with you guys and being your voice for a new village.
Hi, my name is Joe Burns. I'm currently a village commissioner and running for re-election. I moved into the village in 1961. I spent my whole life here just about, from the second year of high school till now. Don't plan on going anywhere. And I think that I've accomplished stuff in the last 4 years that I've been a commissioner. I was also a Park District Commissioner for 6 years down in the Park District when we put the soccer field and the new baseball fields, the spray park, and the aquatic center. And we also put the skate park in the back of the Park District. What I plan on doing is I plan on getting people together and coming up with ideas and making these things work. The village has to have a voice, and the voice has to be the people that live in it. And I think that I can accomplish a lot by bringing people together and getting that kind of work done. So I appreciate your vote, and I'm up against 8 other qualified people, and I wish everybody good luck here.
Hi there, my name is Julianne Bonwit, and I'm asking for your vote for Village Commissioner. Thanks to the Forest Park Review and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight. Thanks to my fellow candidates here coming out and continuing the dialogue. I want to give a particular thank you to our host tonight for actually acting on my request for a kid zone so that parents could attend this evening, as well as providing a sign language interpreter. Access to local government and the ability for all people in our community to be engaged and participate is so vitally important for our village to succeed. It's actually the main reason why I decided to run this year. My husband Andy and I bought our first home here in 2009. We started our family in that home, and we are raising 2 children, a 7-year-old and 4-year-old that attend the public schools here in District 91. I'm a mom, a wife, a social worker, a coach, an athlete, and a lifelong activist. I've been successful in driving change in our community, and I want to continue to do that for you, my neighbors and friends here in Forest Park. Thank you.
Good evening, hi, I'm Marty Talalian. Actually, I'm surprised to realize that I actually moved here before Joe. I moved here when I was a year old, and they came from 5. I went to school here through the 5th grade, and moved back in my 20s. You know, I have lived in Forest Park for close to 50 years, and in itself, that doesn't really mean that much, other than the fact that I love this town. But what is important, I think, is the fact that I have been active in the community, whether it's going to some of the meetings on the expansion of the Eisenhower, or parking, homes for parking, or the water project that came through 20 years ago. I've always been involved. I got involved in more on the political side when my friends Terry Steinbach ran for office, became commissioner in 2007. And I guess the other important thing is that I don't have a slate. I don't have a campaign committee. If you call, you will talk to me. If you send an email, I'm not good at social media, but if you call, you will talk to me. There's nobody that's behind my scenes or anything. The only people I'm aligned with are people in this room, Village Forest Park. So I hope you will honor me with another term on the council. Thank you.
Well, good evening and welcome. Thank you all for coming. You were here before, yes. One man could only have so many horse sport coats, so I had to go with the floor. My name is Ryan Nero. I stand before you seeking an opportunity to serve this great village. I possess the integrity, the leadership, the education, and the experience to effectively solve problems. I want to be your voice, and most importantly, I want your trust. Tough decisions will have to be made, and I'm not afraid to make them. I'm not intimidated easily, and I want to do what's best for Forest Park and its residents. Tonight you're going to hear many of the same issues, many of the same solutions. We're going to have to think about that as a community. It's time to decide, though, who can actually get results. I want to be part of the team that leads Forest Park into the future, and I want to be your commissioner. Thanks.
My name is John Cooper. Moved to Forest Park in 2002. I attempted to run 8 years ago. My petitions were challenged, and I got kicked off the ballot. I went to Wheaton College. I've got a business and economics degree, so I want to spend my time focused on the village's budget, and then working with the other 3 commissioners to listen to you, to hear what you want us to do, and go in the direction you want Forest Park to go in. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Daniel Novak, lifelong resident of Forest Park, and currently a commissioner of street improvements. It's an honor to serve the village that I was raised in. With my 2 decades of municipal government experience, I truly believe our village is at a crossroads right now. Now more than ever, we need sound leadership that is passionate about grounding our village and taking an aggressive approach to municipal government and business. On April 2nd, I ask for the residents to believe in me as your best choice as Village Commissioner. My 4 platforms are engage residents and business owners, ensure satisfaction, customer service and excellence, continually seek ways to do things better and smarter, and make sustainable decisions that will have an impact on our future. With my experience and passion in government service, my commitment to Forest Park, I have the ability to be the past, the present, and the future for this village. I will continue to work, live, play in this town, and on April 2nd, I ask for your support for Daniel Novak.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Russ. I am seeking your vote on April 2nd for Village Commissioner. I appreciate the Forest Park Review and the Chamber for holding this event, and I look forward to sharing my views with you. I'm a lifelong resident. I love this town wholeheartedly. I've been here as a kid. I've been here as a young adult. I am now here as a divorced father of 2 young children, and I want them to grow up with the same experience that I grew up with. A neighborhood, a town that helped raise them. There are some people in this room that have a part in helping raising me, and I want to be able to have that same exact opportunity for my children. So I look for your vote on April 2nd as a voice to communicate to you and to relate to you and be there. I'm a very approachable guy. If you don't know that, you'll find that out very, very soon. I enjoy to talk. I enjoy to listen. So on April 2nd, please vote for Ryan Russ. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let me start with its response to one of our questions. Could someone from the slate explain the missing candidate? Good night.
Just a little louder.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Your mic's not on.
Mike's not on.
Yeah, hold it like you're gonna look at like an ice cream.
Okay, so the question is from the audience. Could someone on the slate explain why we are missing a candidate from the slate?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Jessica is very disappointed not to be here this evening, but before she decided to actually run for office, she had made plans and is actually out of town, out of the country at this moment, and she'll be back and knocking doors and answering questions. She apologizes for not being here.
Okay, thank you. So it's, I think, universally agreed that Forest Park has got a revenue challenge.
I'm sorry, but can someone please fix this microphone problem?
Yeah, it's bad.
None of the mics seem to be working. I don't want to interrupt, but I'm just saying. This is not okay.
So it is widely acknowledged that Forest Park has a challenge.
Hello, hello.
I'm also a sound guy.
So if you want a sound guy in the village council, we're set. It's perfect and valuable already today. All right. So it is widely acknowledged that Forest Park has a challenge with revenues. Forest Park is not a home rule community, which limits certain avenues that other larger towns might use to raise revenues. Village Council has recently raised a series of fees to try to shorten up the gap in revenues. So why don't we ask each of you to be, and let's not at this moment at least talk in broad terms about economic development and we need to build the hobo space, but more specifically, how do you envision raising revenues to cover operating costs?
Well, the first thing we need to do is recover our parking ticket money. That's a large chunk of revenue. That's a great start. Doing that. The economic development, like you said, is just another piece of it. But I mean, you have to start doing that. You have to break everything down and look. There's small things you can do along the way, but it's a big gap. So the little things, you can't cut your core services. That's a priority. Our police and fire department are best around. So that's not an option. We have to talk to department heads, which they do already. So it's going to be some work.
Is this just open style here?
Open sale, but it's so, I think everyone's gonna probably want to comment, so go ahead. Dan?
Yeah. Revenue reduction. Again, with this, at the end of the day, you gotta operate the municipality like a business. Sustainability, strive for sustainability, make sustainable choices. Again, when looking and examining the budgets and everyday work, you gotta put the goggles, what would you do at your own house? Ask yourself that question, would I spend it, can I afford it? We're taxed in regards to, we're spending well over 100% over our property taxes, and we're offering great core services. But again, we have to continue to look at ways to do things better and smarter. With that said, in turn, it's back to your question about the rates. We did examine those rates. I know that's not an attractive thing, hiking the fees, raising the taxes, but all those rates we looked at, those haven't been touched in years and years. So we're just bringing it up to the current CPI in regards to what it truly costs to provide that service, provide that garbage, provide that water. Sustainable choices, treated like a churro.
I think it really needs to look deep in the budget and see if there's anything that can be cut, can be removed, that doesn't affect negatively the core services. I also think we need to take a look at all of the assets the village has, the vehicles, the computers, the desks, any of that type of stuff that gets little to no use, I think would be good to sell and use that money for the operating budget.
So it's probably going to get a little redundant by the time it gets to the end of the line here, but when we talk about things like this, it's important to realize, number one, we're talking about parking. Brian had mentioned it, but also look at what we're doing as far as what it costs to park here, right? Not just the tickets. You know, when was the last time we've had a hike and what it costs to park in a spot, right? And make sure that that is moving as the village progresses. In addition to that, you know, everybody's talking about Roosevelt Road and developing parking lots. And we hear a lot about the Altenheim and green space. And those are great. I will tell you right now, I met with the developer and talked with them about property that we have on Harlan Avenue in Forest Park that can be developed into multi-use spaces that nobody's talking about. You guys might know where these properties exist. We're talking about Circle in Harlem. We're talking about Madison and Harlem, and then further south. These are opportunities to develop vacant spaces to generate well-needed sales tax revenue that the Village of Forest Park needs to make a dent in the deficit. Because unfortunately, doing little things here or there is not going to take the big bite out of it. We got to do something, we got to stick with it.
You know, we do have great services in Forest Park, and people have mentioned the core services that we want to maintain. Certainly we do. I do think that we need to get help from the residents. You know, you look at you know, our leaf pickup and what we do. You know, really, our leaf pickup is in the fall, but many residents actually dump their leaves in the street year round. We have to get support from the residents to help our village public works guys and not put that burden on them. Likewise, I think you probably have seen we have great, you know, sidewalk services. You know, should we really be plowing sidewalks on overtime? I think we have to look closely at overtime. You know, our police, our fire, public works, our core services, but we have to be careful about how we spend our resources so that we can focus on those resources. I'm not in favor of adding parking fees on Madison, but I am in favor of us enforcing that 3-hour limit so the people that come to visit those stores and spend money are truly the people that are parking.
I believe that the Chamber of Commerce just rebooted their Economic Development Commission, which is a wonderful plan, and the village needs to support that, be involved in that as much as possible. And similar to what many of the other candidates have said, we need to look at identify and promote the vacant and underutilized properties around the village, from all over the village, not just on Madison Street, but all the way down to 16th Street, on Roosevelt Road. There's plenty of little spots that we can identify. Talk to our local realtors. We have a vast array of wonderful realtors in our community, and they have the pulse on investment communities and possibly businesses that might be looking to move here. And I think it's really important that the budget is made accessible to all of us. It's really difficult to find, it's difficult in preparing for this to understand exactly just how much in the red we are. I think it would be really helpful for all of us to see that, to have access to it, so that we can all help with that. Just like Marty was saying, that it's all of our responsibilities. And yes, as your leaders, we will drive that, but we need your assistance with that. And one of the main things is to look at the vendors that we have been using and making sure that we get the most bang for the buck that we're using, and that they're competitive, and that there are that it's a fair process, and that it's public. And those are just a couple of thoughts I've had about the economic and financial situation.
Well, I'm going to reiterate what Ryan said. We have to hire a collection agency with teeth to collect our parking revenue. Also, we've been working with the contractors to get contracts with the village. Recently, we just renegotiated the ambulance contract that saved us $50,000. They come down in price $50,000. So we're saving that. We're also looking at other contracts that are out there that we could probably trim a lot of the fat out of it and bring that deficit even down a little bit more. This village didn't get into the red just in 4 years. It's been in the red for 13 years. 1 year it finished in the black. They were borrowing money from the water department for 13 years to try to make the budget balanced. After a while, it just doesn't happen anymore because cost of services and things like that have gone up to the point where the money that we get in from our property taxes and our fines and stuff do not cover what we have coming in. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the way we do business. And we have to work with economic development. I thought we weren't going to talk about economic development right away. But economic development is a very important issue. We have to get the bank involved with low interest loans to customers. We have to take the people that are coming in here and get the landlords of these buildings up on Madison Street to tell them, you don't have to charge an arm and leg to rent your store or your storefront. If you're renting it, you've got people that are in there, you've got clients that are in there. If you're not renting it, you're paying a property tax on it, you can build it. So, you know, it'd be behoove you to work with the different vendors that are coming in here to try to open up businesses in town here. And finally, like everybody says, the whole village has got to be involved. We put the appropriations ordinance on the agenda every year, the first meeting of January. The appropriations ordinance is passed. It shows you every department in the village, and it shows you what was allotted for money for the appropriations. The village doesn't work on a budget. We work on appropriations. If we worked on a budget, it would be a little bit different. But most of the time, we're working with appropriations, how much money was appropriated for each department. And we pretty much kept on line with that, but we're not getting the revenue back into the village that we thought we were getting, and that's what's keeping us in the red, plus some of the contracts that we did lose.
Okay, on the last one, hopefully I'm not too redundant. First thing I think I would do after there was 6 of us at the firehouse on Tuesday night. We spent 2.5 hours with the fire department. And they came up with some great ideas. And I realized walking out of there, those guys know the village almost better than I would challenge probably anybody in this room. I think I would invite them to the table for economic development. One of the things they established was the Harlem Avenue corridor. A lot of us kind of thinking east to west, Madison, Roosevelt, but I'll give Brian some credit. He wasn't there, but I'll give him some credit that maybe the Harlem corridor is where we should be looking. Certainly from a traffic count, that would be something to focus on. We've also learned that, and this is research we've done as our slate in small group settings, that hotel and car taxes are going to be the #1 opportunity this village has. We know we need a hotel, and we have a Gleason property that can be redeveloped. I know it's a tough property to pursue, but there's an opportunity there.
So when people want to give Ryan credit, you got to specify.
We don't.
Science
squared, April 2nd.
I don't like this when they do this in other debates, but I'm going to do it because there are so many people. Let's have a show of hands of people who would be supportive of the idea of putting parking meters on Madison.
Up here or all over?
Along Madison Street, from Harlem down to this place. Anyone want to do that? Nobody? Okay. Second question, this came up at a forum we did a week or so ago at the library with the candidates for mayor. A person said, I don't go to Madison Street to shop anymore because I can never find parking. What is the village going to do to add more parking spaces adjacent to Madison? Her concept was in furtherance of what's been done over the decades of acquiring properties behind the businesses and adding parking. Anyone think that is a priority? Anyone think that is an impediment to Madison Street's success?
I think the idea there is the signage.
Hold on a second.
I would say in terms of parking, there's opportunity to maybe put meters, and when I say meters, I'm not thinking of physical structure, but I'm thinking a parking taxation, but off of Madison. So I would do off Madison parking. But certainly, we've learned that enforcement of the existing rules is a big issue, or lack of enforcement. So whatever we do, we want clients parking on Madison and workers parking off of Madison.
I think that's one of the problems up on Madison is that the proprietors of the businesses and their workers park up on Madison Street, so if you're going up there, you want to stop at a store or something, Madison Street is full. I mean, you can walk in some of these stores and there's nobody in there but the people who work there.
So you would push enforcement of.
I would push the enforcement. I think where you have enough people working during the daytime, they should be able to cover Madison Street at least once or twice a day.
Well, I just would agree that we have things in place that are not being used. I mean, we have hours that are supposed to be used and they're not. We have, just like we don't have a collection agency, there are tickets out there and we haven't been using them. So we need to access what we have. And I think it's important to keep Madison Street accessible to people. That's part of the great thing of it, is having free parking for people to come here. But I do realize that it can be a problem, but workers also have to have some space. So it's something that we do all need to talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we can help people find places off Madison. You know, you go to the lots on near Madison. There's many of those spaces are 8 p.m. At 8 p.m. there's red signs there. You park there, you get towed. You can't. You know, those are for the overnight people. There are other places that we could have those people park, whether it's along the Eisenhower on the back street there, or even getting people that are close there to make parking spaces in their back alley. That might involve raising the nightly fee a little bit to try to encourage people to go elsewhere, so that they're not in those lots and taking those spaces. But it doesn't seem to make sense to have a business district with a lot of village lots very close to that business district, with many of those spaces inaccessible after 8 p.m. If we want to promote our restaurants and our nightlife, we have to be able to have places where those people park. And likewise, we have to have a program. We did for a while where workers were to park on Adams Street and have passes to park on Adams Street. We have to get the workers that are in those establishments off of Madison and free those up for the
Yep. I mean, you want to hear it more times? I mean, what you need is someone who's going to do something about it. That's what you need, right? If we're going to talk about enforcement, and we're going to talk about signage, then we have to go get it done. Put the signs up during peak time to limit the parking times, right, to an hour or 2 hour, and then have a plan for enforcement so it gets done. And how do you measure that? How do you measure whether or not it's getting done? Right here. Are we getting the money? Are we getting the money generated from people that are not following the rules? And ultimately, our small businesses will benefit because they're going to get spaces turned over, and we're going to get people moving in and out of Forest Park.
One thing I would like to see explored is there enough space behind the bank to do a 2-story underground parking, maybe 2 or 3 stories up, combine it with their drive-through line so you're using the airspace and the underground of the alley. I mean, that would be a viable way. I think we could get quite a bit of additional parking.
I'm going to be quick. Enforcement is key. I mentioned parking garage, that's magic wand. You know, if we had the funds, and what's the return on the investment for building something like that? But enforcement is key. You know, chalk the tires, start writing tickets, and we go from there.
It's the history of Madison Street. If you have good businesses that are filling up the spots, that's what's going to happen. So if parking is a problem, that's kind of a good thing. That means businesses are thriving. So it's kind of a catch-22. You got to enforce it, and then if we have the means to look down the road later, the parking garage is obviously another solution.
Let's talk about the Aldenine property, which the village has now owned for a long while. continues to make annual payments, coming close to the end of those payments in the next, I think it's 3 years. Been a lot of discussion about why has this sat basically untouched. A couple of proposals along the way, the YMCA, Fenwick, but nothing ever came about. So the question, and try to be as specific as you can and as quick as you can, because we're got a lot of people. Should a portion of the 11 acres be sold for development? Is that 3 acres closest to Madison? Is it more? And what sort, and if the rest is to remain open space, are you supportive of music venue idea? And whatever you're supportive of, is there some sort of a timeline by which some rational conclusion this comes to?
I love Altenheim property. First, I'd love to, I work in a park district, I love green space. That's a priority. We only have so much green space in this town. That is a piece. So in order to make that green space happen, a piece of that has to be sold. A little piece, I don't know what the specifics are, but some portion of it has to be sold in order to generate the revenue to do the other part of it. Music venue, sure, it sounds great. Where do people park? All that. The concept is unbelievably awesome. We're already in the red, so if I win the lottery, we can call it Ryan Russ Park, and let's make it happen. We'll have a music venue, we'll build a small wall, so the people in the Grove will be okay, they won't hear any of the noise. But there's a lot of options. We just have to explore them. There's a time frame. We've been here 14 years with the land right now. To start doing something, there's a lot of things, a lot of pieces that have to move together. So bottom line is, we love green space. I do. So that's a priority for me. How we keep that, that's to discuss with people that you guys elect.
Again, I'll keep this short. Again, all these questions, you did ask a questionnaire, and I think you guys are handing those out. So our more detailed answers and specifics are in here, so to avoid the redundancy. I'm a total parky, green space all the way in that regards. Someone to chunk off. Again, we're too early in the game. Again, I would not be open to that until you saw any numbers. How big it was, what we can do on that. We own it. We have a couple years to continue paying off on it, and it's paid for. Right now, we just have to do some minor improvements that we can afford. It all comes down to dollar and cents and what can we put in there. Clean the place up, usable bathrooms, again, respectful to the neighbors, and again, it can be everyone's backyard. We can do event management there where we'd be respectful to the neighbors, but again, have a crown jewel for the community to meet on the south side of town, or on the north side of town, just like the Park District 4 Park here on the south side.
I think at this point, meeting with the residents of the Grove and meeting with people who are in charge of the music venue and coming together and having basically town hall meetings and finding out what the residents really want done with that property. I think that's the best direction to go.
John, you missed the town hall then. We did have a town hall, as a matter of fact. Ralph DeFebo, who's here with his wife Andrea, they hosted the town hall, and I'll tell you what, the people of Forest Park seemed to me was an overwhelming group of folks that showed up, and I would say a strong majority was in favor of green space. So you can have green space and be able to generate revenue. It can be done. Think about what we do with Rib Fest and what we do with I don't know, Oktoberfest and Groovin' in the Grove. All of those events generate revenue in one form or another. Music Fest is another one. Maybe it's got a little bad taste in its mouth still, but I think we bring it back. But nonetheless, it's a good space. I mean, the long and the short of it is, yes, you can sell off the north parcel of land. You sell it off to the developer. You get the sales tax and the revenue based off the sale to help buy down bond issue on the property, and then you can demo the existing asbestos-filled, decrepit property or structures that are in the back of it, and then you establish yourself a green space back there. Do you build a music venue? Do you have to do, those are all concepts that village residents, just like yourselves, came up with to do something with. So whether or not we do that is really not the issue. It's let's preserve what we got and let's make a positive step forward with it. We've been sitting on that thing for years, spinning our wheels on what we're going to do with it. Let's do something. Again, plans and action. Time to get some people in office that are going to take action. I'm one of those people.
You know, the engineer is going to come out now. I've been to the town hall meetings. I was at the one that they had about the Alpine. And there is a talk about, we wanted to maintain green, and I'm sure if we had our druthers, if we weren't restrained by lack of resources, that, yeah, we would say we keep it green. But in all these meetings that they've had, they talk about that this will be in the black. This has to be in the black. There is no way you're going to build a $10 million park music venue and be incomplete. And this is the kind of thing that unfortunately it's been faced all along. To me, it's the voice of reason. You're not going to spend that kind of money and have a facility that would require a tremendous number of venues to be in the black. So I think it's nice to say that we want this total 11 acres to remain green, and that we want to build a park. We want to have it be in the black. But I think it has to be balanced. There has to be a scale to it. The purchase agreement calls for us to own. All we can develop is 8 acres out of those 11. That's in the purchase agreement. And develop really means putting a shovel in the ground or putting a bulldozer there, so that 3 of those acres are going to stay as they currently are. It was always envisioned that the front portion would be that park. Those 2 acres would be that park. Because I know they're talking about selling that. But if you look at the setbacks and you look at the shape of that property there, it's almost not buildable. So that the intent of that limit on the development, 8 acres, was so that that front, and actually we're responsible for the sign, that front would remain the same, and then we would build in the back to be developed. The Alpine agreement limits the development to R2, residential 2, which is townhouses 35 feet high. I think there's plenty of room for us to have a nice sized park there, maybe a little area where there's going to be detention requirements, maybe have ice skating back there, a pond or something like that. But I think we do need to have a portion of that property become what it was zoned for, R2, R1 or R2. And then there always was talk, even when I was on the council in 2007, there always was talk about an H hotel in that area, and that being, the implication being a Hilton or a Hyatt. If we could get a garden in at the south end by the CTA, and then have a few townhomes on a portion of Van Buren, and 5 acres, 6 acres in the park in the back, I think that would be a balance for that. We got green space, we got development, we have income. I think that's a good solution, but that's something the council's going to have to decide.
So I believe I would love to keep it all green space. I think there was a big portion of folks that came out on Monday night, and we realize how important it is to save our green space. But reality is we don't have the money necessarily, as we've all been talking about. And there's some other things that, as a village commissioner, I would want to look into, and that we would all have to look into, and that's the parking and the traffic flow, talking to residents over there at the Grove. I understand it's very difficult coming out onto Madison Street, and you can only go out one way. You can go in 2 ways, but you can only go out one way. And that portion on Madison Street is not, it doesn't just affect, we are not in control of that necessarily as a village. We'd have to talk to IDOT. My background in social work, they're talking and building relationships with some of these bigger agencies would be extremely helpful. We would have to deal with that traffic flow, even if it's not a music venue, but if it's just a park where maybe we have an ice skating rink, maybe we have a little mini golf putt-putt place. There's so many different ideas that we could do with that, but before we even get there, there are bigger issues that we as a council and as a village would have to deal with, and the traffic and the parking is a huge one.
Ralph is here and Todd is here, Todd Peterson. I've been working with these guys for 2.5 years on that cultural park over there. It's been changed 6 different times. We're looking at all the concepts of doing something with it. It's been sitting stagnant there for the last 15 years. I've been in meetings with them, we've looked over plans, there's development that can be made there. It's going to cost money, but it's a concept, an idea, a thing that nobody was doing before, and now everybody's talking about Altenheim. We've looked at what a great place that could be during the winter time by taking the snow off of Madison and building hills for sleds for families to go over there and use it. A big ice skating rink so families could enjoy it back in there. An ice skating rink doesn't cost you a dime except for putting the water in there and somebody fixing it all up. Ryan does it over at the park in the back of the tennis courts. Ryan Russ, my co-partner during the summertime. But these are all concepts. Yeah, it costs money, but there's stuff that we can do that doesn't cost a lot of money to do that the families in this town can use. And a couple of them are winter worlds. And then again, when people are talking about traffic control, we also have a study done. Christopher Brook Engineering did a study on how much it would cost and what would have to be done to put a stop and go light at Madison and Van Buren. We'd have to get an agreement with River Forest because there'd have to be a sign on that side. And talking about IDOT, I sat down in the director of IDOT's office there and got the money released with Mayor Calderon for the Roosevelt Road project, $4.9 million at Browner Rose. And then when we went down there, we got the money released so they could do the Roosevelt Road project. So I'm very familiar with going in and dealing with people and getting deals done. You know, I just think with this concept of Altenheim is a concept. It's not a done deal. And everybody keeps on thinking it's going to be a done deal. The done deal is when we start breaking ground and doing something there.
I'm glad Altenheim is an easy word to say because everybody's talking about it all the time. But what I want to talk about is green space in particular. One of the things we're doing as a slate is meeting to expand these ideas. And one of the ideas that has popped up from Jessica, she's not here, is the idea of additional pocket parks. If you guys live near a pocket park, you know what they do to your neighborhood, your experience, and your community. So Altenheim, I attended the event as well. You know, it's an awesome concept, but like they said, it's 2%. It's 2% of the work. There's a ton of more work to do on Altenheim, regardless of what happens. But as a commissioner, what I like to do and work on your behalf, this would be with Jessica or any of our other commissioners, is explore the pocket parks that exist in our neighborhoods.
You know, when I was on the village council, I was the commissioner of public property. And after the YMCA deal fell apart, it didn't fall apart actually. The YMCA was unable to raise the money. That was like a $20 million project. They only were able to raise $6 million, so they backed out of the deal. At that time, I was commissioner of public property, and I went to Dominican and Fenwick, some of the schools in the area, talked about putting a baseball field there. I contacted the Park District, the Fenwick, Dominican, to try to see if we could do something to put a park there, a field in there. And unfortunately, the council voted to take that property away from my jurisdiction as commissioner of public property, and nothing ever came of it. So I just wanted to point that out. And while I was on the commissioner of public property, we established two pocket parks. Two pocket parks in Forest Park.
So that was what, back in 2007?
2007, 2011.
Okay, it's 2019, and we're still talking about what the heck we're going to do it all. All right, so I guess my point is I work for one of the nation's largest infrastructure companies, dealing with NDOT, CDOT, Department of Transportation, CMAP. These different agencies is something that I work with on a regular basis. So getting in there and having these discussions is something that's in my wheelhouse. And so yes, I do agree, it's just a concept, but bringing it from concept to reality just takes the right people with the right motivation to start getting it moving.
with all the history. We have to understand, you know, our village is at a crossroad. April 2nd, we're gonna have a new mayor in the House. No matter what, there's only 2 incumbents running. There's 5 votes, so if you do the math, if Joe and I get in, you still have 3 new votes. You have a new mayor who sets the agenda. I truly believe you're gonna start seeing movement on the Altenheim, because it's gonna be paid for in a couple of years as well. With that said, I truly believe, with my experience in municipal government and parks, I could be the future of Altenheim in steering that to a successful location for all.
So let me ask this question, it's a question I've asked Dan and Joe in our endorsement interviews. You've both been on the council for 4 years. You both have said it has not been the most productive 4 years. You felt a certain stagnant element. So why should people vote for you now if you had a 4-year period where you weren't active out the park?
What did you said, unproductive, and what was the other? Stagnant? I would disagree with both of those. Again, we make a difference every day. Again, core services have been provided. You know, we fill the police department, constantly supporting the fire department. So we're doing things every day for municipal business. With that said, there's nothing, you know, no home run regarding Altenheim. We blew it up and made it what it is down the road. But again, proud of what we do and proud of what we did. Like I said earlier, 5 votes, and again, it takes 3 to get things done. With that said, we need to push our staff to bring them to the table, and again, use them as elected officials to guide the ship and make Forest Park a better place.
Well, it hasn't been a bad 4 years. It's right after the first year we were in, that's when the bottom fell out. That's when we weren't collecting parking tickets. Parking ticket revenue from late 2017. You have to understand too that we were in a contractual agreement with Heinz Hospital that paid us $450,000 a year to have our fire service go over there. We lost that contract. And we lost $450,000 out of our budget. So that's a big piece of change out of the budget that we lost. That budget is coming back up again next January, and we're going to rebid that contract. Broadview came out and they took the budget that was out there for them, and they brought it down to $230,000. So you know where the Heinz Hospital contract was.
Give them all.
The Heinz Hospital contract, you know, anybody that... No. It must be... How about this one? Hello, everybody. So the Heinz contract, they got it for $230,000. They didn't fulfill everything that they were supposed to right off the bat, but they got the contract. So we're looking at $450,000 loss plus the parking ticket revenue, and then some of the contracts that we got involved in. We're looking at those a lot better. But when I say, how many people have been in the military here? Again, you know, military guys, when I say this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. In the military, they say, hurry up and wait. The last couple of years, it's been hurry up and wait. We go through and we look at everything, and we're going to get it done, and then we got to wait. We don't act. That's the biggest thing we have to do, is we have to act on stuff that we're looking at. If we come up with a decision, let's go ahead and move on it. Let's not be afraid to make a decision. Let's go ahead and do what we have to do to make things work.
Okay, thank you. A question from the audience, and a show of hands. Is anyone inclined to change the current overnight parking ban, which restricts parking of 2 to 5?
It could prevent me from getting tickets? Yeah.
Okay, so no one wants to do that. Question of so-called rowdy funerals. Complicated, cultural, policing, multi-jurisdiction, what do you do?
Well, since I'm retired from the police department, I probably could answer that. They've been meeting with with a team, a tactical team with Chicago, Oak Park, Elmwood Park, Berwyn, Cicero. There's a tactical team that's out there. They've notified all of the funeral directors of that any rowdy funeral that are coming through town, and they go out of the way and try to block traffic or drive on the wrong side of the road, that their license plates are going to be taken, they're going to be sent tickets. The tickets are going to be asked for a double fine and a suspension of the driver's license if they do that. It's very hard to figure out when exactly they're going to be coming through, not unless that funeral home calls us. Trying to direct them over to Roosevelt Road, where it's a much wider street, that they can, that the funerals can come down Roosevelt Road instead of coming down Jackson or Madison, would be the ideal thing for any funerals to do. But we have to be fair about this. You know, there's people that live here in Forest Park, and if you're old Irish, you know, the first thing that the hearse got to do is they got to drive by your house. Oh, he used to live there. You know. But you know, you can't stop people from doing that. But we're going to have to get the funeral directors to educate everybody that's in the funeral to get onto Roosevelt Road instead of coming down Jackson and Randolph, especially when they're coming by school, the schools that kids are in school that get that.
Who else has a thought on the funeral situation? Right?
I do think it's just a matter of safety. I live on Jackson, so I see it go by. As long as we police it so that it's as safe as can be, you know, that are final goodbye. That's how the people want to send them out. It's somewhat of an inconvenience, but hey, you know, we have casket bases in Forest Park. We have to embrace the fact that there are cemeteries in Forest Park, and just keep it safe.
There's like people in caskets.
You know, in all honesty, it does become for our first responders, it can be a safety issue, right? If there's an issue on Madison or Jackson and moving those large vehicles there in an emergency, when you have a large procession, you have a situation. It should be pushed to Roosevelt Road in most cases. Enforcement on something like that is a tricky thing. I was having a discussion with an individual not too long ago who thought that a proposed tax for coming through Forest Park would be the idea. I don't know if that would work or not, but you're going to have, in this situation, you can talk about enforcement, but you'd have to get creative. You'd have to work and have a relationship with the local funeral homes and see what their plan is and see what routes they have. And if we can establish that relationship, that's how all of this works. And then we don't have to rely on enforcement. We can rely on that community aspect of building relationships with the people that we do business with.
Do all the people on the panel believe that climate change is real? Climate change is
It's
real?
warm in here.
So yes to climate change. So the review reported yesterday that the village is...
I didn't clearly see that. If you believe in climate change, will you raise your hand?
Climate change is real?
Thank you.
Okay. So the real news, okay. So the review reported yesterday that the village is looking to upgrade a informal citizens group into a permanent sustainability commission. Good idea. What can Forest Park, as a small town, actually do to support sustainability?
I got the bike. For the first time, I got to go first. No, I think sustainability is great, right? It falls right in line with continuous improvement and doing things differently. We had a rain barrel program here not too many years ago that I thought went well. But with our improvement projects, right, permeable pavers and rain gardens, and some of these things, the way that we build and the way that we construct, making sure that we're not covering parcels of land with blacktop and asphalt, and that we're providing drainage. These are the types of things that's going to promote or not promote climate change, right? We need to be part of that. And the village council that's either the current administration or who's coming into office, I think needs to partner with that. I saw that in the newspaper, and I'm a proponent of it.
again, it's Forest Park, it's the people. We couldn't have a better person leading this charge, as Mrs. Rasmus is here in the back of the room, heading this committee. So again, when you have dedicated people who care about something, who have passion about something, they're gonna do the heavy lifting, they're gonna do the work. They're gonna let their elected officials inform their elected officials of how we can improve. It's our job to listen, it's our job to act. Again, diversity, any of these commissions, safety and traffic, how can we give them a budget? How can we let them spend some money? And in turn, do an effective job because they love what they do. They're joining these groups because they have the passion to do it. And again, that's who we should lean on because they're going to give us the answers. And again, give us the information and a question to answer for them that we can get things done.
It's absolutely vital that we have this commission. I can't believe that it's 2019 and it's just being reinstated now. So it's wonderful that's happening. We need to make sure that as village leaders, we are part of that process, and also who on that commission. Not only do we need our experts in the field on that commission, but we need every piece of the village, I think, needs to be represented on that commission as well. The business community, the schools, it would be really helpful to get, because this is such a major task, and it affects all of us, that we all, there has to be representation on this committee for that. And one of the main things I think that could really help with is educating the adults in the room. We are always looking at, oh, let's teach our kids, which is absolutely vital, but if we're not the people the stewards of our environment and actually practicing and teaching our young people, and they can they can learn by example, then we can talk to them all we want, tell them about recycling, but we have to seriously look at what we're doing here, and whether that's at Village Hall and just about recycling paper. There's going to be more talk about that. There's going to be more talk in the businesses, with the business communities. What are they doing to prevent plastic overuse and reliance on plastic? So it's great, and I think this dialogue needs to continue in a very serious way.
Yeah, I think that the village can take a leadership position maybe and do some things with the rooftop gardens and things like that. Certainly schools, they're probably the ones that have the money to do that in our district. Anyone here? But I want to, we had a show of hands here earlier. I want to show of hands. Who hangs their clothes outside in the summertime? Drive down Jackson and look back at through my grapevine. You'll see my clothes out all summer long.
Anyone else want to comment on this topic? Julian, you had mentioned earlier, and this goes to a question we have about the village budget being online, I think you said. So the question is about transparency, which is a word everyone uses these days. How is Forest Park not as transparent as it ought to be? And what steps could be taken that are doable, accomplishable?
Sure. So a simple tool could be having a more accessible and easier to navigate website. That's one of the main things that people use these days to gather and gain information on your town. Well, as I started getting more involved locally, I was floored that Forest Park had all these boards and commissions. I had no idea that they were out there. And I can guarantee you many of my friends and neighbors do not know about these boards and commissions. They are an absolutely wonderful way for people to get involved and to volunteer and to share their expertise, because we are made up of a village of a lot of experts. And on the website, it's really difficult to figure out where it is and who's on these boards and how you can actually do it. So I truly believe that making a more accessible website would be super helpful in regards to transparency. and having information available when you go to meetings. A lot of time, some of the village council meetings I've attended, they've been really fast. They haven't, I'm not quite sure when the decisions have been made, when they've been made, because it doesn't happen in front of us. I would like a more open process to that, especially with big decisions, making sure that people have the information and not just a short agenda, but everything available that they'll be reviewing that evening. Those are just a couple.
Other thoughts on transparency? Mark?
To reiterate a little bit what Julian just said in terms of transparency, I think you have to consider transparency, the inclusiveness and responsiveness of our government. Certainly our commissions, if you've tried to apply for a commission, you know you have to fill out an application, but you actually don't know what the requirements are. It'd be really nice to see that spelled out so that we can improve our diversity, all different colors, all different ages, all different genders, all different orientations. That is something I would like to see more transparent in our government.
Joe, you wanted to say something?
Just to clear up something, the agendas that they're online, and you could look up and see what business is coming up. When we go out for the meeting, we get up there, and yes, we're passing things. We don't meet before there. We don't meet and sit down and discuss all these issues. The only way we can do that is read it, and we vote on our own volition on what that bill is all about, or what that ordinance or what that resolution is. If we met privately with each other, in a game of more than three, that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act, and we can get fined for doing that, and sometimes there's jail involved in it. So we don't meet before the meetings, and we don't sit down and discuss it as a group. We discuss it when we get up onto the council floor, because there's a motion, there's a second, and then there's discussion. They ask for discussion. So if you have any questions, which people have had, you can get your answers at the council meeting about that particular resolution or ordinance. But they're all online under the agenda. Nobody's hiding it. And if you look on that for the agendas, you'll see it's got all the agendas in there from 2018 all the way to now. But if you wanted to, if somebody said something a month ago, you could look at the agendas for a month ago and see what was going on with it.
Other thoughts on transparency? Marty?
It would be really helpful if the agenda was up a lot sooner than it is. Usually it's just, I think the requirement is 48 hours before, and it would be really helpful being prepared to go into that. Everyday citizen doesn't have necessarily the time to really delve into the agenda, so I would like, as a village commissioner, if we could change that and make it at least a week before.
Yeah, I think, that's a lot of talk. It's always been that way, even when I was on the council before. The information is generally available online. You can find our financial statements, our audited reports. It's there. It's not that hard to find. I think the area that the village does not a good job, or does a worse job on, is the meetings. I was probably very vocal in meetings. I was very vocal in meetings. I always talk about why I was voting for something. At times I disagree with people, but I think that's the biggest change that we can make, is that actually, I know that there were meetings going on. I was on the outside when I was on the council. I know there were meetings going on prior to the meetings where things were being decided and assignments were being made. That has to stop, obviously. And then there's if you've been to other towns, some of them actually have monitors where they place it in front of the dais so that the people that are in attendance can actually see exactly what the council's looking at. I think there's a few things we can do like that, but mainly is make the decisions in public. That's the key. That's transparency.
You started the question, basically transparency is a punchline. Again, people got to take the information and use it and educate themselves with it, and what do they want to do with it? We meet twice a month. Meetings are always open. Cell phones, email addresses, business cards. Anytime my phone rings at Village Hall, it goes directly to my cell phone. We make ourselves available. the meetings, the backdoor stuff. I have never made a decision in my 4 years that I haven't done my homework on, asked questions about, and again, for the best interest of the community as a whole. Agendas are online. We follow Robert's Rules of Order throughout the meetings. And in that regards, we're always open for questions. Again, we have these meetings, sure, sometimes they're 20 minutes long, and we have the same 3 people in the audience at the meetings. What I think we can do, honestly, is make something a little bit more consumable. We need to celebrate our wins. This would be put out to departments, department heads, on what are you doing well, how can we toot our horn, and make something consumable we can share to the public to inform all of our highlights on what we do on a quarterly basis and or on an annual basis as an annual report per department.
Anyone else?
I think the biggest thing for me is being able to communicate to people, and that's important, that you feel you're able to talk to your elected officials, and that's the access that I want to provide, is to be able to see you on the street or at the Dunkin' Donuts and say, if you have a question, let's talk about it. That's my biggest thing, is that people, when you think you don't know something, you feel like you're left out of the loop. But if you're being told the information and you're in the loop, you can't say that you didn't know something. So for me, that's my biggest thing. Information is out there. It's 2019. There's Google. My kids can find some of the craziest YouTube videos. I'm sure we're able to find things if you look for them.
Question from the audience: is there anyone on the stage who has an opinion on shortening hours for local bars? Anyone have a thought?
Again, we have to treat business owners. Businesses are a vital part of our community. They all have business plans. Again, their voice is just as important as a resident because of what they provide. They're part of our community, and we got to treat them with respect and customer service. And how can we keep businesses in town? So again, I would be against mandating. And again, this is Forest Park, and in what you have on social media. Are we closing the bars at 10? Again, that would not be coming from me.
Yeah, I'll dovetail off that just for a second. We talk about what's important to the village residents, right? And we talk about what's important for us as council members and transparency and communication and all these things. But to really keep Forest Park vital and thriving, we have to look at another element, right? Making us attractive for people to come and do business with us on Madison Street. And so this lends itself right into that. We have to be able to make sure that the businesses in Forest Park are able to attract other customers. That's just as important because people are coming to our village to buy goods and services and visit our restaurants and spend money. So it becomes a little bit bigger. And so you'll hear me talk about that one of the things that I talk about rather is that it's important that we look at Forest Park first when we are making decisions, and less about the individuals and certain agendas, and look at what's Forest Park, what's important for Forest Park in the next 5 or 10 years from a growth standpoint. And that's a big part of that is our businesses.
Our problem is not the fact that the bars are open too late. We have had a couple bars that are notoriously over-serving people from time to time. That's something that we have to clamp down on a little bit, but the problem is not, in my opinion, it's not that the bars are open too late.
So it's interesting because I had gotten this question from a leader within the community that she had heard our slate was wanted to close bars at 10. I can absolutely 100% let you know that is not part of any agenda, any manifesto that we signed. I am a mom of 2 very young children. They go to bed around 7:30, 8. If I get a babysitter so that I can sneak out, if I close the bars at 10 o'clock, I am rushing through my meal. And I cannot actually enjoy the wonderful establishments up on Madison or down on Roosevelt. So there's absolutely no way I would ever be on board closing bars at 10. I'm also raised by an Irish Catholic mom from Galway, and the pubs over there never even close. So I'm not advocating that necessarily, but that is very far from at least what I ever considered.
Madison Street has changed quite a bit over the last 10, 15 years. Usually, if we went back to when the kids would come in from school, from college, there'd be lines out the door on Thanksgiving Eve waiting to get into the places. And, you know, on the holidays, they were coming in from school, and that's where they'd go. And then they'd have to be just about pouring water on the next morning to eat the turkey dinner. The thing that we have over advantage of the bars is the fact that if they do something wrong, there's retaliation that happens with that. Called in, they're given a ticket, they go with the ticket. If that continues, if that kind of stuff continues, they can get closed. They can get closed for a day or a weekend. And anybody in the bar business knows you get closed for a weekend in these times, you might as well shut down the doors because you're losing tons of money with something like that. So there is ways that the police department in the village can control the rowdiness on Madison Street. And I'm not going for the BS that they give you, well, you know, they got drunk in here, but they're outside and they're making a noise outside in the parking lot. You got them in that condition, you put them out there. So, you know, they weren't intoxicated out here, they were intoxicated in your place. So there's ways to take care of people like that in bars like that. And I think we should continue to look at the ordinances that we have to keep these bars from violating those ordinances and keeping the village a little bit more quiet and sustainable for business.
I think the question was about closing the bars at 10, and then that's been answered. But I think the bigger issue regarding the bars in general is that they don't exist in a bubble. We have competition from neighboring communities. Oak Park used to be dry, so Forest Park was feeding a lot of those Oak Parkers, and it's changed. So we are attracting a lot of Oak Parkers because we have amazing restaurants. I think those are the types of things that we will continue to do, and we've seen Oak Park businesses, not just restaurants, thrive here. So as far as the hours, that's a dead issue, but I think there's a continued opportunity for us to expand on the success of the restaurants here.
Any other thoughts? Let us thank our candidates. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back with the mayoral candidate.